we get to sit and listen this time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you want me to kind of talk about what the intent
Yeah, that'd be
of this
great.
is?
Yeah.
So basically, the roundtables is really, we're expecting everybody to participate, to have a vibrant conversation where we're sharing ideas about what our best practices are. We're here just to hopefully make sure this thing doesn't stop, and we continue to facilitate and push you guys and pull more information out of each and every one of you. So this is really a panel. I think the panel of this one is best practices of brokers.
Yep.
You know, what are we doing that's working for us? I think the exact opposite is also a good question. What are things that we've done that have been failures that we've learned from that's helped us to be better as we move forward? Because I think we learn from our failures as much as we learn from our successes. So I don't want us to just be thinking, what are great things that we're doing that are working within organizations? What are things that we've done that we've just really stubbed our toe on that we've learned that we would either do different or we wouldn't waste time doing it at all?
Yeah. So I've got, I kind of spent some time going through a list of topics that are kind of broad-based, maybe just to kick things off as opposed to doing okay, what do you guys want to talk about? And we all stare at each other for 4 minutes, right? So I'll kind of get into some of this, and some of these are based on, as I mentioned in our panel discussion, that I'm new to my role, so I'm learning a lot of what a lot of you have been doing for years and years. But one of the things that running a brokerage, running a business, running a high-producing team, what I've learned is that the protecting your time, like the not getting trapped into the whirlwind of the day-to-day, the minute, hey, you got a minute, and then you never move the needle on the things that make the biggest difference. So I'm kind of curious, maybe as the first thing to kind of throw out to hear from the group is how do you manage your day or your week, for example, to make sure that those initiatives that you know actually move the needle as far as your bottom line or your growth initiatives, what they might be. How do you make sure you're focused on those and actually, or your team's focused on those, and not just getting caught in that whirlwind every day of, agent needs that, client has a problem on this. I'm curious how all of you manage that a little bit. Not effective. Hand went up right here, so I'm passing the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we all have. All of our agents have deal needs. They have urgent, and we have urgent and important, and we've got to address the important and tackle those WIGs and the lead measures that are going to move our needle forward, right, and in turn help them to move their needle forward. So I think one of the things I've learned when agents come to me and they've got a transactional concern, I ask them to go back to their desk and think about 1 or 2 or maybe 3 solutions to come to on that transactional concern, and not just lean on me for the response or the outcome. Think about it. The language is right in the agreement of sale or in the addenda. The typical answer is there already written out for them. So to ask them to go back and think about an answer, 1, 2, or 3 options is really important. And then we started to do what I know Gino and Chris have done for years on a weekly basis, doing accountability calls with my team. I work with 10 managers in the Lehigh Valley and Bucks County in Pennsylvania, and we really focus on lead measures that are going to help us move the needle forward and have good, candid conversations about what we're going to do on a weekly basis, and then a follow-up accountability call the next week. What did they accomplish? What got in the way? And what are they going to do the next week? So having that sense of accountability is really important.
Yeah. Does anyone else do similar things like that as far as either with yourself or with your team members as far as that weekly accountability session?
Well, it is interesting that when they come to you with
Sorry about that.
when an agent comes to you with a problem, a lot of times they've got 90% of the solution already worked out, and they're looking for validation. And one of the most interesting times I can recall is I listened to a voicemail one time from an agent that said, "I've got to talk to you, Bill. I've got a problem. I've got to talk to you. I don't know what to do. I'm in this corner. This thing's closing in a week. I'm not sure what we can do. I guess we could do this. Well, we do have a stipulation that says that." And then at the end of it, she says, "That's it. That's exactly what I'll do. Bill, thanks so much." So a lot of it's just the process of talking it out. But it's time consuming. And the fact that, our market is spread out, so our agents are selling all over the place. So when they come in and they're only in the office for an hour or 45 minutes, that's valuable time to them, and they don't seem to have a problem breaking in my office and just saying, "Hey, you got 5 minutes." And that's a real problem, but it's something that I continually work on.
Isn't the worst thing that we can do is just give them the answer, because then they become dependent on us, right? I feel so often as managers, so many managers I talk to are reactive managers, which in my opinion, I hate to say that, I think it's a bad manager. Not that they're not nice people, not that they don't care, but they're reactive. They think they're problem solvers, and that's the minimum standard, is it not, for what we should be as managers? If we want to be leaders, we need to be proactive. We need to be coaching. We need to take them down that path. And a big part of coaching is not telling, but it is listening to what their needs, their wants are, and their unique personality, and building upon those strengths. But I see so many of my managers and managers I consult with over the country, that's the first thing is, they're going to give them the answer, they get them off the phone. Well, the problem is they're now just inviting that person to come back to them time after time after time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Going back to exactly what we're all high Bs, we want to get the answer, get moving on to the next issue. But one of the things that I've really worked hard on is exactly what he's saying, is that you listen to the concern, have them come up with a solution, but also ask them why. Like, why are they thinking those solutions? Getting to really think through their thought as well. And then also sharing with them your thoughts and seeing how you can collaborate to be, certainly to get a better response or a better action at the end. But it has made a big difference in our company as well, because it's easy to get a quick answer. You've been doing it for 30 years, you've probably seen some sort of something one way or the other, but when you're able to help that, it makes a tremendous difference. You build trust and whatnot with the agents.
It's great. Yeah.
Obviously, if someone pops in my office or opens the door, all that stuff is, I think that's naturally where we go.
Yeah.
If somebody shoots me a text message or an email and says, hey, can I have 5 minutes later today? I always follow it up with, absolutely, can you give me a little bit of information so I'm prepared for our conversation? And I would say 8 times out of 10, I solve it before we even have to talk, because it's just a real quick, like, well, I have a question on this, and you can just quickly send it off, and they appreciate it, but you also save that 5 minutes that interrupts you working on something else.
Yeah. One thing that when I started, and it felt like I was living in the middle of a hurricane a little bit, and I learned this from somebody, when I'm mapping out my plan for the week, so when I do my action plan for the week, and I sit down, typically do that on Sunday afternoons and map out, here's my week, rather than having just one list of here's all the things I want to accomplish that week, it was learned to break those out, right? And so like, if I have 3 weeks for the company, those items, action items for the week are broken out by the week, and then there's the whirlwind list, right? The things that don't really, I know, move the needle, but I still got to get them done because it's part of the job. But then when I get to like Tuesday or Wednesday, I start reviewing that list, I'm like, all my check marks are all in the whirlwind stuff, which are typically the easy things, right? The things that feel real good when you can go, check mark, and you like move on to the next. But I haven't done anything else. So separating those out physically on a piece of paper or however it is you organize your week really helped me to identify, I've been solidly in my whirlwind the whole week. I haven't done anything that actually I know makes a difference at the end of the day for the company. That helped visually for me.
Sorry, I'm texting Gino.
No, that's all right. So one of the things too that I know that is something we all struggle with and work on a little bit too is the idea of delegating activities to other key folks on your team. And so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there a little bit about, in your roles, how do you find and what it is, what are the things you find most effectively that you can delegate off, or do you ever stop and consciously think about things you're working on that you could probably hand off to someone else that they could do just as effective and probably at a lower cost to your organization? That's a concept I know we all struggle with on what we do, so I'm just opening up to that a little bit.
Anybody good at that?
Go ahead, Steven, yeah.
I can go. So Chris and I are kind of in the same spot. I took over a large company about 8 months ago, and it was a family-run company. But it was a lot of, dad's culture, and we had no assistants, no nothing. So as I've been growing and getting the likeness and the trust in, I realized that I'm good at a lot of things, but I can't do a lot of things well. So I'm good at it high level, but then the implementation. So for me, I have 2 assistants now, and I don't do anything anymore unless I'm supposed to do it. So you know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right? So.
Yeah.
I delegate everything that if I can't directly impact it to make it better, or if there's someone I'm paying to do the role, I give it to them. Now I'm falling back into some micromanagement because I don't trust the people, but that's a different story. But because I gave them the task, I learned, nope, this isn't the person. But if I would have kept hoarding the work, I wouldn't be in the spot now where we're going to make some pretty significant changes. So just really identifying for me, like, if I'm paying someone to do it, they should be doing it. And if it takes me longer than it should take, I also don't touch it. So I'll just pass it to one of my assistants, and they'll at least figure it out and then come to me with the boiled down raw data or whatever, so I can just make decisions.
That's all.
And if I can't make a decision on it quickly, then I gotta have the information. I'm a very visual person. So they break it all down, put it all together, then do the research, do the follow calls, whatever I have to do, and then move on it.
That's good. Who else has this? Yeah.
Ed has just a spin-off of what you were saying. It's very difficult to be really good and have the time to do things really well just with one person, depending on the size of the office. And so we have implemented in our company, our managers they identify ambassadors, is what we call them, of agents in our offices, who are very good at specific things that are a good balance to what maybe they may not be good at. If it's technology, or if it's training, or if it's when we introduce something new to our company, we train them as ambassadors as a company so that they can go back into the offices and rather than managers be the actual expert, although it's really important for them to know everything. We have the ambassador agents who are in the offices who really help us get the message through as to not only how to use something that we implemented, but how they can use it in the business to make a difference. And having that street cred with the agents do it really makes it.
That's kind of neat too, because that's giving your leaders, your managers, the freedom to delegate.
Right.
Like, we're going to actually clear the path to make it easy for you to delegate some of these activities, as opposed to leaving it up to them and whether they will or not. I love that. That's awesome. Very
Do
cool.
you compensate the ambassador?
Not necessarily. We try. Some are top producers, of course. Some are middle producers. But it's really they want to do. They want to give back. It's something that they have in their own business plans, and they volunteer. And some, of course, are a little bit newer, and they're the ones who want to be on the leading edge and want to learn those things and have the interaction with the home office to be able to, get that direct training also. So generally not.
Scott, Steve, I know for sure you have walked out of here in the past and now implemented mastermind groups within your organization. Gino and I were talking about that on our panel here not long ago. Can you talk about how that, because we really focus a lot on coaching in this organization, and I find quite honestly, we don't have a lot of managers, and I think our trainers think they're coaches, but they're really not coaches, right? I think one of the struggles within most organizations is how do we find internally coaches, right? Because we've got all of these top agents running and paying $1,000 a month to Mike Ferry and Tom Ferry and Buffini and all these other things, and internally we should be doing some part of that ourselves, even if they're doing exterior people in that. Can you talk about how you've implemented mastermind groups? And you and I shoot back emails on a pretty regular basis.
We do. Thank you, Vince. Very quickly, we after the first explosion, I was here with two of my top associates. I have an office with 70 agents in Atlanta, and I was convinced that that's the direction we needed to go. We'd never had a mastermind group, and so we started. Thank you for Vince, for your help. And I think it's been a game changer. I think it's helped with retention. It's helped drive production. I had 15 of my top folks in the group, first quartile folks, and started off with a dream board, a vision board. We did a vision board on our first anniversary of the group, either do a new one or bring your old one back and talk about what you've accomplished. It's really brought the group together. I take a back seat in these meetings per your advice, and they're agent-led, agent-driven. They pick the topics, they conduct their own meetings. They're 2 hours once a month off-site. Have a few guest speakers come, and I have to thank you for that.
Has it created that attitude of abundance that we talked about,
Absolutely.
where they see the value in helping each other and actually helping others helps them?
What you said earlier hit the nail on the head, because you think there's a perception that for folks that aren't doing it, well, these top agents aren't going to share. They will share, and they do share, because a rising tide lifts all ships.
And they're smart enough to realize that actually if they're open about what they're doing and they put themselves in an environment where others are open what they're doing, everybody wins.
That's right. In other words, these 15 folks at this table, our competitors are out in the field. They're not in this room at this table. So I think of all the initiatives we've rolled out, or that I've helped roll out or implement in the last 24 months, that's probably been one of the biggest ones. And our next meeting will be, I have 4 or 5 of my top agents here, and they'll be presenting at our next mastermind meeting notes from Explosion.
Perfect.
Nice. I started about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and just started in my region, and we took it company-wide. So I have like 6 facilitators, which I found the hardest part to get it going, especially since the different regions have different cultures. was to make sure that they understood the abundance part, right? And then the facilitator was strong. Because the top agents think they know everything, you know, and next thing you know, the one agent's taking over and running the show. So to make sure you have a strong facilitator, they understand the why behind it. And once you can get them to break down some of those shields or whatever in some of these cases, so they can actually feel like, hey, Vince isn't going to take all my leads or my listings, or if he copies it the same way, you know, I'm not going to lose all my business. That was a bit of a struggle, but we've been doing that, and we're having great success.
Do you have any type of structured agenda whatsoever? Like this month, we're going to start talking about this just to get going?
We said at the conclusion of any given meeting, the agenda or topic is set for the upcoming meeting. And someone will volunteer to lead that discussion before we go into the group part. And we start every meeting, again, Vince was tremendous with this, we start every meeting with, you know, quick roundtable. What are you seeing in the market? What are you doing to grow your business? What are you doing now that maybe you weren't doing 6 months ago? Just very quickly, we start with that as kind of an icebreaker, but it's far more than that. And then we go into our topic.
Yeah, I can talk about our format. Ours is an hour and a half. I do 14 of these. Selfishly, I can't make it more than an hour and a half because I don't want to add another half hour 14 times out of the month right now. But our format is really the first 30 to 45 minutes. It's just an open conversation, and it's everything. It's things that they're struggling on. If someone's struggling on presenting their broker's flat fee, if they're struggling on getting a higher commission, then we talk about it. And people that are doing well will help those that are struggling with that. So it's an open conversation. Good, bad, or indifferent, you know, what hot parts of the market, you know, where we see mobile offers, you know, where we see no activity. So it becomes a pretty vibrant conversation and anything can pop out of it, right? And then I take the Darren Hardy approach. The next thing is, because everybody's got to participate. This is about a group of everyone participating. If people aren't going to participate, we're like, don't be part of this. The second thing is take it serious. Here's what amazes me. My top producers that are doing 80, 100 deals a year plus, they always, unless they're out of town or in the hospital, make the time and have the ability to find this hour and a half in the month. But yet I got the low producers doing 5, 6, 7 deals a year, and half of them show up. It makes me crazy. I'm like, you sell 7 houses a year, and magically, this hour and a half, you're showing a house? You kind of plan your one house every 2 months around this hour and a half? And it's because, you know what? They don't see the value in it. And so part of that is on me to figure out and help them understand what the value is. But it blows my mind, right? Why does the best of the best, the busiest, the most productive, make the time to attend events like this and attend a mastermind group? Because they know they're going to learn, they know they're going to grow, and they know they're going to be better.
That's why they are the best.
Yeah.
Right. But it's crazy to me.
I have a question. I'd love input. So sounds like you're doing them regionally and you're doing them by your office. So
Yes.
I have an office of 150 agents, but I manage a region as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing it differently. We did one a few months ago, and we did it by region, which was interesting, but they don't have those relationships with each other. So that can be good or bad because you get the input, they're not in competition with the other person, or you're doing them right within your office.
Well, that's because I got so many people in one office.
Yeah.
But if
Well,
I had a
don't
region,
have to have them in just my office, but
if I could get them to drive, because we do the vast majority of them off-site. We'll do our brand new ones here, and we'll do like a new construction one here. But we're always breakfast, lunch, cocktails, and I pay for that. It's a $200 to $250 bill every time we do a mastermind group.
And we broke it in region because of the difference, and some they don't want to travel. So I just went through my rosters in the region, took the 14 highest producing agents, and invited everybody. And then whoever didn't show up, I filled the spot, so I have 14 people, and now I have group 2 and group 3 and group 4 within the region. So I just copied everything that Vince did.
But
I didn't change anything.
We've talked a lot about this, but you got to understand, he's covering even a broader geographic
state.
area
They'll
than you
drive-
are.
I have
So
people
it's not
driving an hour
reasonable.
for me.
If you guys have your own regions and they're within a 30-minute drive of each other,
That's what I did.
I would be picking the most central strategic place that's a restaurant that has its own private room. It's got to have a back room where you can do that. And I would bring them together from that whole region.
Yeah,
And then by them getting to know each other, they're going to
Just tightens the bonds within the region.
right. It's going to make the organization stronger because those people are going to start
And then-
knowing each other, and being bigger fans.
We took Gino's 18 questions, and then the top 7, they paired up with accountability partners too.
It's a good idea.
So, or, the second meeting? First meeting we did dream goal boards or whatever.
Dream
The
boards,
second one we did the accountability partners. And so we ran through the 18 questions, it broke out and they all talked to each other, came back, did exactly what Gino talked about this morning. And then we rotate every month. So it was pretty good stuff.
Did that answer your question? But if I had a region, I want to do it by office. I will tell you the one thing that has been critical to me is to put like-type production people together.
Yes.
Yes.
One. And two is then there's now this evolution. We will move somebody's grown their business up, we move them out of this group and then we'll move them into a better group. There's
You have multiple groups.
We have multiple.
Your second quartile is a.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 14 mastermind groups. So that's brand new agents to probably 4 top producer agent groups.
Each meeting every month.
Each meeting every month.
Same.
I try to stretch them every 5 weeks if I can sometimes.
Yeah, pull out your phone, make sure it's scheduled, and the same thing. So we have the low quartile, like the $2 to $3 million producers. Well, now some of these people, we've been doing it 2 years. They're doing 10 million. They're in the second to highest quartile or whatever. So they got to move up. We should do a better job celebrating the move up, but that's another topic.
Even some of our top producers, like they have assistants, they'll bring their assistants in to talk, or they'll bring a buyer's agent in to talk that's really good on social media, that's younger. So we'll have them bring outside people in on these type of things, so they engage other people that they know in that process.
It sounds like you attend all of yours.
I attend everyone.
Everyone, and now you were saying that they're agent-led, so do you attend every single one?
I do for 2 reasons: to facilitate when needed. To this gentleman's point, sometimes somebody will want to take over the meeting a little bit.
He doesn't know you, does he?
What?
He called you a gentleman.
I'm from the beach town. I can't help it. But I facilitate when needed, and then I'm there to pick up the check. I laugh and say, I'm just here to pick up the check. Don't mind me. But I will step in and facilitate if it gets if the train starts getting off track a little bit. It needs a leader.
One of the things that I will do is I will bring ideas or things that we've heard from other mastermind groups. So part of that process is saying, here's something we heard from another mastermind group that we thought was a really good idea, or here was something, because right, when we tell stories, it's more powerful. So if we hear a story of some success story that somebody had, they were marketing in a neighborhood. An example is one lady just recently marketed certain farms in her own neighborhood. She just recently had 3 listings. 2 houses sold almost immediately, but they were completely updated. They were move-in condition, but they were both smaller than her largest house. The largest house she had that had 300-400 more square feet took substantially longer to sell, and it wasn't updated. And so so you use those stories to go in to tell people how important it is to update it, how important it is to price it right, what your marketing strategy is. But we just tell stories all the time of what people have done, and that allows other people then to go tell those exact same stories as part of their presentations.
Can I ask a question? Mm-hmm. We've just implemented the mastermind groups within our office, and this is my first time here. I'm a brand new broker in my office. And we had done it because the former brokerage I was at, we did mastermind groups, and so I took it to our leadership and we started doing them. But we've sprinkled different production. Like we've got new agents in with seasoned agents. And the group that I'm overseeing, I'm seeing that it's helping probably more so the newer agents.
That's the problem.
Okay.
So we started that way.
Okay.
And what we found is the experienced agents start dominating the group. Nobody else is really thinking. They're kind of mindless. They're just absorbing from everyone else, and it does help the newer agents. But the more experienced agent starts getting to the point where they start checking out because they're like, what am I gaining from this? I'm coming to this, I'm coming to share. And so, but when you have everyone that's of the same production, there's more of a mutual respect for each other, right, wrong, or indifferent. Mm-hmm. And I found everyone's been more productive. So I'm not saying our way's right. I'm just saying for us, we've experimented with it always, and we found that. And so the part of being there is if nobody's participating, if you're not saying anything, I'm gonna call you out. I'm gonna say, hey, what do you think about, if you've done a client appreciation party, how did you market that? Or the one thing you've done, it's about pulling more information out of people. We just did a client appreciation. Well, what did you do? Well, we did it in a movie theater. Well, how did you promote it? And so it's all about pulling it, because there's just little tidbits of that information. Just saying you did something successful doesn't really necessarily tell anybody else in the group
why it was successful, right? You've got to walk them almost through the process. So that's the reason you need us as facilitators, is not to give information, but to pull more information out of everybody in that process about their successes, their failures, so we can all learn from those things.
Have anyone who has it implemented so far, when it comes to attracting talent, have you ever used it as an opportunity to someone that you're looking to have join your office, like get a little glimpse of like, this is what we do here?
Yes, well, maybe not invite, I haven't had anyone attend the meeting, but in an interview, I've talked about, obviously we talk about culture and collaboration, and to that end, I will speak to the mastermind group.
Yeah.
And I think it has made a difference if it was suitable for that particular individual and their given production.
Yeah.
I invite them.
Yeah, I would assume it'd be very powerful, I would suspect.
And I group them with the group.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Like
So
this would be your group if you came.
yes.
Yeah.
Vince, you gave me last year a really good pie chart that, and you were saying it talks about, your new agent training is there for your first 90 days in the industry or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm going to bring it up right now.
So his point is, what do you do for the rest of your career to help develop yourself? And so his little pie chart shows your new agent training that everyone talks about, how they have the best training, is just one sliver of your whole career, and then the mastermind group is one of the other pieces of the pie. But I've used that a couple times, and I think it opens up agents' minds of saying, what does their current broker do for them to really help develop their career? So
I remember 10 years ago, I think, Brad, you're one of the couple of times, like Joan and Larry brought me in a couple of times. I was having some meetings with them once, and everybody in the country says they have the best training, the best training, the best training. Every market, every person. I mean, I've never heard a broker say they don't have the best training. And so Peltier and I were talking about this. Ron was one day, and he's like, I've never quite heard it that way. So I have a graph. They just redid it. I don't love how it is, but they'll bring it up and show you. But it has a pie chart. It has like 7 or 8 different pieces, okay? And coaching is large, and training is small, right? Training in sports is getting faster and stronger. And in our business, everyone, when they're really talking about training, they're talking about the first 3, 4, maybe 6 months. Nobody in the history of the world became the greatest at anything in the first 3, 4, 6 months of anything, right? So we have training as a piece of the pie. And I just say, let's just assume Fox and Roach has the best training in our market. I don't really think they do, but for this argument, we're going to say they do, okay? It's one piece of the pie. You're not going to be great in 3 or 4 months when you're done with the training program, right? We're going to do mastermind groups. We're going to come together and collaborate on an ongoing basis, because the millennial think tanks I run, and what they tell me is, listen, the world, we grew up with change. We believe the world's going to change at a pace we've never seen before, and we plan on doing business. This is what consumers today are saying, by the way. We do plan on doing business with people embracing change. So if you're trained great for the first 3 or 4 months, that's great, but you're not going to continue to grow and develop and learn and move forward if that's it. So we have sales meetings. Sales meetings we don't bring in outside vendors to sell their products for sales meetings. Home warranty companies, those type of guys, they're not, because what we found is our agents were bored to death, they didn't like that. There's always going to be an inspirational, motivational video to start it off, the Zig Ziglar approach that people need to do that daily. There's going to be some content that if we have some stuff for the real estate commissioner to keep us out of trouble, we'll give examples of that. But the meat and potatoes of ours, it is going to be a prospecting, business growth, and revenue generating activities. Our sales meeting next week, again, will be 2 panels of people coming out of here, their top takeaways. We do panels probably 40% of our sales meetings. And otherwise, I'm taking ideas out of mastermind groups. By the way, I become a better coach, can lead better sales meetings by going to mastermind groups and sitting there talking to other top producers on a daily basis, because I'm learning what they're doing, things that I'm not smart enough to think of my own. Some of them are so simple, but we become better coaches. And so that was my original question in this process, is do we struggle, which I believe we all do. And I'm trying to teach some people to become coaches within my organizations, internally within our organizations, to get coaches. And I will tell you one way to help make someone that you have that's a trainer or a manager a coach is let them, and I always have it, what I did not say is I always have a manager sit in the mastermind group with me, and I make them take notes, and then we share those notes for other mastermind groups. And then I always ask them for ideas for sales meetings. So I keep going back to them to make them re-look at what were those ideas that we got there. What were those great ideas that for concierge services? What were those great ideas we had for client appreciation parties? And so, but that's one of the best ways I know to start turning someone into a coach, is put them in a opportunity to learn from other people that are doing things out of the box, that give them fresh ideas to give other people fresh ideas.
So part of what I'm working on too is, like, we have office managers. I have 40 office managers. Maybe 2 of them are decent coaches. So part of what I believe in life is that if we're not developing and coaching people, like I personally have coaches and people that I work with for development. So this is something that I'm really intrigued in, and how can I be a great developer of these managers or a new group of people that are my job in life as a manager at my company is going to be coaching and developing that agent. That's all I want. I don't care if they know brokerage or not. You know, laws of brokerage. I have brokers, lined up against the wall. There's plenty of those out there. But it's hard to find a coach and a development person for our agents. So yeah, if someone has a great way to figure out how to train them or hire them besides the mastermind groups, I think that process for me is too long. I would love that information.
Well, another thing, this is Steve-based permission, so anyone that speaks, because I don't know everyone, I apologize, let's maybe just say who we are. No, that's okay. I didn't ask you to do that. Another thing that we've done is I forced one of my managers who came over about 4 years ago. Every fall, we do a prospecting, get out of your comfort zone, business development class for 6 to 8 weeks. Starts in October, ends right before Thanksgiving. Now, why do we do it every October, November? Because 2020 isn't going to begin January 1st. 2020 in our world, from a coaching perspective, starts October 1st. And so the activities that they do in October and November is going to determine when it's 2 degrees in Omaha in January, in February, how much business they're going to have, right? Because it doesn't help you today or tomorrow necessarily, but it starts filling your pipeline 60, 90, 180 days down the line. So I forced her, she was not wanting to do this, I said, you've got to take and develop this class. I had another person doing it before, steal from them, steal from our mastermind groups, you got to put this whole class together, bring top producers in to share ideas. The first day she did that like 3 years ago, she's like, I seriously, and she was dead ass serious. She said, I seriously considered getting in an accident so I would have an excuse to not be there. Because she had so much anxiety. So the point of this is we do have to, unfortunately, push and encourage at the same time those who we believe have the talent and the skill set to become coaches out of their comfort zones. And they're not going to want to go there. But when you tell her, you've got 100 people signed up for this class coming every day for 2 or 3 hours for the next 6 weeks, she doesn't want to make a fool out of herself, or he. And now she's becoming more comfortable with it. Still doesn't love it, but she's became a much better manager and coach in that process.
So last year, I know they did this in Terra for a long time too. So last year was my first year at the company. On October 1st, I sent out an email, with the subject like "Happy Anniversary." I'm sorry, Happy New Year. And it was, and then went into that whole idea like if you're not thinking about 2020 right now, you're already behind because everyone else is going to start business planning in January. We're going to start now. And it was amazing the dialogue that just generated by just sending out a simple message to the whole company saying, Happy New Year. And it was fun, and it kind of reinforced what you were just saying with the idea that this is what we do, this is the expectation.
Absolutely. Yeah. What else do you have on your list of questions that you?
Well, so one of the so there's a lot of different things too, but one of the things that's facing us, and these two kind of tie together, but a lot of our different markets. We have, obviously the buzzword now is disruption. I'm coming from Dallas-Fort Worth, where if people ask, is so-and-so in your market? And the answer is always yes. If you look at the chart that they put out where they have the check mark next to every broker, yes, they're all there. But we're an industry where we're a little bit of a hair on fire industry. So if a new business model comes into the real estate world, everyone's like, we're out of business. No one's ever going to buy a house the same way ever again. And we're done. So what I've started doing when you have a group of agents with you is I'll say, okay, who's bought a car in the last 5 years? And almost the whole room, put your hand up. Okay, keep your hand up if you bought your car from what I'll call a quote unquote traditional dealership. 90% of those hands will stay up. They say, why? Well, because I've known the guy or I've known this woman for years at this dealership and I have this, that's interesting. So you have a relationship with somebody when you buy a car, even though right now all of you could buy a car by the time I'm done talking on your phone. And I know a lot of markets now, they have the car vending machine. Have you guys seen that? It's literally a glass tower of cars and you bang on it and multiple cars fall out. And so you have all these different ways to do it, but most of us are still buying a vehicle in a traditional way because we want that relationship connection. And then the idea is like, car costs this much, house costs this much. I mean, do you really think, as long as we're doing our part of it? And so what I'm curious about is how all of you in your various markets, because each market's different, has different companies that are in there, trying to displace maybe our agent from, interceding between us and the client, of how you address that in your company. I mean, how you tackle that head on, how do you deal with it with your agents, how you calm fears, how do you change going forward in the future, the way you do things to refocus on relationships, and It's not going anywhere, so I'm just curious
Talking
about
about
what's kind of tackling
with the
that.
iBuyers.
Oh, iBuyers, I mean, different business, whatever it might be, any of them.
Well,
Yeah.
Atlanta's not unlike Dallas. We've got all of them.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Open Door, Offer Pad, Knock, Zillow, and then we've got different business models coming in with huge signing bonuses, not unlike many of you in the room. But we've seen a change with iBuyers. I think Bill, I'm Scott Simpson, it's Bill Murray. We're both with Georgia Properties with Dan Forsman. iBuyer activity and movement seems to have trickled off, I think, since the second quarter. They're sitting on a lot more inventory. They're bailing out of more contracts on the last day of inspection and last day of due diligence. Zillow's sitting on a good bit of inventory. Again, only a 15 or 20%. We talked about that this morning of what they're coming in on off value. It's less of a conversation, I think, for our agents now than it probably was in the first or second quarter. Would you agree, Phil?
Yeah, when they came into the market, the iBuyers, we already had semi-iBuyers. We had Click and Duffy, who's give me $500 and I'll put it on MLS and I'll list it, but you got to show it, you got to do. So, and we've seen that shift, and I explained to the agents, you know, if you look at those that were around 10 years ago, their market share's down and these new ones are up. So we're still got just about the same number of people who don't value you as a realtor. So if they don't value you, move on to somebody else. The thing that really resonated with me was at convention last year when Chris Stewart put a slide up that said there's the national debt is $22 trillion. And there's $33 trillion of unmanaged home equity in the United States. So I started drilling into my agents that we need to be aggressive out to the clients and talk to that as your realtor, it's my responsibility to help you manage your equity so that when you get to retirement and you're going to cash that house in and go buy your retirement house or go buy 2 retirement houses, what do you need? You need $500,000, you need $2 million, you need $3 million. You need to tell that to me so I can advise you on the way. It's no longer time to buy and sell houses on livelihoods. You need to buy and sell houses when it makes economic good sense for you to build your equity ultimately for retirement. So we've separated ourselves. So no matter whether the iBuyers are in there or not, they're not talking a game like we're talking. And I think what's resonating with us, just like what Alan said this morning, we've got to be different than the other people. We can't just be the same old same.
So part of it was getting out.
Alan's different than the other people. But
So part of it was getting out in front of your agents and talking about it differently.
We talk about it at Tuesday meetings. I mean, it's no, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'll bring contracts in. If they make an offer on one of our listings, or we list a FSBO who had previously had an offer from OfferPad, Open Door, whatever, I'll share that contract in the sales meeting and show the face value. And here's the thing, if you pull up deeds, at least in Atlanta, it looks like Zillow's paying a fair market. But what they're doing is they're getting 20 and 30 on a $300,000 house, they're getting 20 and 30 and $40,000 worth of concessions, which will show up on the HALTA, or I still say HUD, but it doesn't show up on the deed transfer. And it's all about educating our agents so they in turn can educate that seller that they're sitting across the kitchen table from about let's talk facts,
Yeah.
And we show the contracts.
What else are you guys doing out there? And it doesn't have to be iBuyers. It can be whatever's used as that disruptor in your market. Yeah.
So I'm Christy Budnick, and I'm with BHHS Florida Network Realty. And we anytime there is a new business model that comes out, we let the team know about it. We let them know what we perceive as the strengths, the weaknesses, competitive advantages that we have to, so that when they're sitting across the table from their sellers, they can, have a real frank discussion. If we have some of them, like there's one that's cropped up that's 100% company, but when I say 100%, there's one broker over 1,900 agents that you cannot get a hold of. And they have this addendum that the addendum speaks to, we are not responsible for anything, period, and that you have to sign off on this. So one of the best tools is if a seller says that they're considering this company, we make sure they understand. Just understand you're signing off every one of your rights, but educating the agents so that they know the competition in the marketplace and what they're going up against, and our competitive advantages over that, I think is really important.
It's great. Others do similar. It's like you don't tell them, right? I've learned if you don't get out in front and tell them, they'll just believe whatever
and they
email told
also
them that
think
day.
that you're not confident.
I like what Alan said. It's like, we have one friend in the media business right there. Yeah.
I do the same, not to take the conversation, but with the companies, they're signing bonuses and so forth. So, well, you got to sign a 3-year contract, and if you don't keep the contract, you have to pay the money back. I'd rather them hear it from us. Than out on, to your point, than out on the street, because what they're hearing on the street or from their buddy at a board meeting is not accurate.
Well, and it shows you're confident that you're not afraid of it.
Absolutely.
I think that's important.
You're afraid of it when you don't understand, and if you haven't, as a leader, taken the time to understand what this competition is about, done the research, then you guys should just quit right now.
Can I ask you guys a question? Go ahead, please.
Patrick Rosser from .loop. So we're snake in the grass here. To that point, as far as educating your agents to then educate their clients, is there any benefit of educating your market as a whole?
Oh, we do that too. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you do that?
So we do it through social media. We do it through, we have advertorials because in our area, some of the papers are still read. So we do it through blogs, we do it through a number of different means, and certainly also through our agents disseminating materials as they can.
We do the same thing. Our CEO does like a weekly podcast that agents or managers can share on social media or through email distribution.
Hey, we copied that thing.
Did you?
Yeah, because and you do it in a way, because Dan's great at this, you do it in a way where it's not overly propaganda.
You're not, it's not bashing.
Literally, my purpose is to educate so that as a consumer, at least I know all my options out there and what are the pros and cons of each. And if you print it like that, I think it's much more digestible by folks because it doesn't sound like it was just a media pitch. So,
I said earlier in the opening comments, and I really wanted to expand upon that, but we didn't have enough time, is that I believe we've got to view value different than we have in the past. That we've got to view value from a concierge service, and we've really tried to spend a lot of time on that. One is, do you guys see that the same way as I do, and figure out, because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to get higher commissions with all the downward pressures, because the consumer every single day thinks more and more that we're not worth what we're getting, which I think puts more pressure on us to at minimum, relieve the stress from the process. Are any of you in your organizations working on that subject? Do you have things that you've worked on or programs you put together that are concierge services that helps the consumer relieve that stress and hopefully try to make this an enjoyable, fun transaction?
And I think that's the key, to really help it be make it to be a fun transaction. I'm Brad Pat from Berkshire Hathaway Fox & Roach in the Philadelphia market. We brought in the Ritz-Carlton last year and spent quite a bit of money on helping to educate our employees and in turn agents on the consumer experience and helping to deliver an exceptional experience. I think Alan spoke at length this morning about how everybody has great training, how everybody has stagers, how everybody has IDX and the multi-list. We really spend a good amount of time as a leadership team and then in turn with our agents to understand at each step of the transaction, how can we deliver a truly exceptional experience and take what is the typical and make it the exception, and really try to bring in creative ideas to help that consumer to have an easy, awesome, happy, enjoyable experience. And it doesn't take a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, but if you take the time to look at each step and really try to cultivate that exceptional experience, I think that's where the difference in the value can be created.
Do any of you have, and part of this in the Rethink Council, some people talked about doing this, and they had the menu of services is, listen, if we do all these different things, you're going to pay this, which is maybe even above market commissions. And there's been so many ideas. I'll get a list to send out to you, but things just out of the box, as simple as, everybody hires stagers for sellers. But what we know is the vast majority of people can't visualize. Why do we have models? Because people can't visualize how a house looks. Well, these people buy these nice houses, they're moving up in houses. Why don't we hire that stager for a couple hours for that buyer that's moving into the new house to relieve that stress, to let them all of a sudden put that house together to be enjoyable? It's simple little things like this, right, that we can do for people to do it. But I think we've got to start coming up together with a much bigger list of how are these things that we're going to simplify this process. Some of the things are going to cost us money, but if you got people in a market offering 3.5% or 4%, and you're now getting beat down to 5%, and now you can get back up to 6, 6.5% or 7%, and you've got to spend, you spend all these things you do combined maybe are 0.5%. Well, net, you're coming out ahead in that process. So you got to look at this thing to figure out what are these things we can do in that process. And I just think if we're not doing that, we're dead in the future.
So one thing we incubated in Kansas City and then we brought down to Dallas was partnering with a company called Zarly. And so one of the things we know are, one of the beautiful things about being a real estate agent is that your client calls you for everything related to the house. We've always joked that your basement could be flooding or your dishwasher spilling water on the floor. Do they call a plumber? Do they call a contractor? Do they call the real estate agent? What do I do? But we've learned is that if the client knew on the back end when their consumer calls and says, hey, I need a painter, that it typically results in a shout down the hall or a blast out to an email list, like who knows a painter, like it's a very unsophisticated thing. And so what Zarly does is they come into a marketplace and they curate the vendor list. So it's an invite only, so it's the reverse of Angie's List. The vendor doesn't pay to be on it, they have to be invited on it. And the way Zarly makes money is they get a little slice of every deal that the person does through the platform, the vendor does through the platform. But the more business the vendor does through the platform, the less their split they take. So there's incentive to do well. Then they partner with the real estate brokerage and everything is branded to the brokerage and the agent. So the client gets an invite that comes from their agent via Zarly that says, we'd like you to become a member of Zarly. This is where our curated list of painters and plumbers and all those other different types of vendors that they need when they buy or sell a house, movers are all right there. And there's enough data there now too, they know from a buyer and seller lifespan, when is the 3-day window if I'm a buyer I need to line up my movers? Because if I don't do it in that 3-day window, the chance of getting my mover on my moving day drops to like 7%. And so they ping them and say, hey, it's Steven, your agent, this is the time to pick the movers, click here to do so. And so it's been really, really effective and well received from the agents because they don't have to do anything, but it's still branding them and giving them those personal contacts with the client and hopefully making that vendor process that every buyer and seller goes through an easier, to your point, an easier process of working with the agent to do that and more sophisticated too. And the great thing is they back it up. So if someone messes something up, if Zarly comes in and makes it right, as opposed to now at a manager level, regional level, you're dealing with these phone calls from an upset person over, some vendor that went out and did something.
Can you spell that, please?
Zaarly.
We're actually going through and vetting about 6 of these companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Dollar does this too.
Well, one of the interesting things was some of them.
I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Some of them do it where not only is there all the stuff that the company vets or they vet, then the agent can have a portal within it where it's just their private people. So I could have, my painter, my carpenter.
Yeah, because you're right. Sometimes they do have their own protected list.
And they don't want to necessarily share it because whatever, but it establishes a long-term relationship so that the client can continue to go back to that every time they need something for the next 10 years. And
that's the flip side of that too, is as the agent, when my client after sale is using those vendors through that platform, we now have the data to be able to know, hey, there's a touch point here. They just painted their house, have their deck redone. And sometimes we've even seen in real life time through the communication channels early where the client says, I need to get a painter because I'm getting ready to sell my house. I'm like, well, that's good information to know. And so anyway, those are the types of things, and we want to make sure that our agents are never at a disadvantage when they're on a listing appointment or working with a client that says, are you guys able to do this for us?
Right.
So.
I think it's crucial. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. To lead to that agent forever, that forever agent mentality, and to have that that portal for the whole experience from pre-purchase, purchase, settlement, and post to have that vendor list.
Absolutely. What everyone's saying here is so critical, and it seems simple, almost like a vendor list, and we've talked about this for so long, but this is the challenge in our industry, is the life cycle of home ownership, right? And at McDonald's, they engage with the brand probably more than they should, but how often do people engage with our brand? And that's what branding is. So the future of our business, owning the database, is going to be having the client there and creating those opportunities to engage with them. Like Lowe's knows that at 5 years is the average point that people replace windows or whatever those mechanisms are. Because if we don't do it, Alexa's always listening.
We've used Curbio probably 3 or 4 times over the past 4 months, very successfully. And the seller benefited financially by having that work done.
Curbio is a great example of that because obviously there's another brokerage model that's saying they're doing it themselves. And again, whether the client or your agent actually ends up using the service, the ability to be able to go and say, well, I can do that. If that's your decision factor, I've got that too. Right. Yeah, for sure.
This has been changed. I haven't seen this yet, but this is coaching versus culture. We want people to understand in a recruiting session and a thing that coaching is way more important. It's ongoing, it's continuing learning, it's continuing to grow, it's continuing to develop, and training is short term.
I like this is great.
Yeah.
And we believe all these pieces of the pie are critical parts of it.
Vince, would you be willing to share the curriculum for the prospecting class?
Yeah. It changes every year. I haven't seen it for this year. But I mean, I will get you our last couple of years' classes, and we'll just send it to you.
Thank you.
But what I will tell you, one thing that I know that I'm adamant. There's two things that I'm adamant we do in these classes that I give directions on. Otherwise, I'd let them really do it. One is, many of you heard me say this before, but Zig Ziglar, the inspirational guru before Tony Robbins was around, always would say Zig. People that say Zig, that inspiration, motivation stuff doesn't last. He says neither does bathing. That's the reason I recommend you do it daily. So you see in our wall down there, words, you see motivate, inspire, encourage. So I told them, as I do with all my sales meetings and speeches typically, is you got to open up with something inspirational. You put them in the right state of mind to start that day. And then the second thing that I require them to do is the last hour is to bring in one or two top producers with different skill sets, with different subject matters to come in and share their success stories. What were the 10 things that helped them become successful to get where they are, and what are the things that they need to continue to do on a daily basis? And then the other part of it just becomes content, always an accountability component of it. But I'd be happy to get that and share that with everybody. Remind me of that later.
So on coaching and training, a long time ago, Brian Tracy taught me this principle, and it held true. It's held true throughout my entire career. And it's the 80-20 rule. He says most of the time managers get it in reverse. He goes, they're spending one-on-one time trying to train people that are underperforming, and because they can't identify with the top producers necessarily, they're leaving them alone. And what that does is it drives the idea that in order to get the boss's attention, I need to underperform. He goes, what you should be doing is with your bottom performers, or let's say it's the 80%, they're typically going to have core deficiencies that are universal across the board. Pull them into groups where they have those core deficiencies, train them, because that's all they'll learn. But the coaching needs to go to the one-on-one, to the top producers, because then you're delivering what needs to be delivered to the right audience. More importantly, you're driving this culture of, in order to get the boss's attention effectively, I need to perform. And I used to, with my managers, sit down with their rosters and ask them, who are you training, who are you coaching based on that dynamic, and specifically with the coaches, how are you engaging with these producers?
Yeah, I never heard that before, but I agree with that. And I would say in our organization, basically the top producers, the large teams, I deal with the vast majority of them. And the mastermind groups when they show up. And then I tell the top producers that I think they have a responsibility, because I'll tell other people that are middle to lesser producers, go to Starbucks, go to spend some time with those type of people. But what happens, we have 18 out of 20 top agents in this marketplace. We shouldn't have 18 of the top 20 people in the metropolitan marketplace. But right now, the law of attraction, it's easier for me to recruit a top producer than it is a low producer. You're like, listen, if you want to be the best, you got to surround yourself with the best of the best and be a sponge and learn in that process. And then there's a law of attraction where people you get average producers and low producers that want to come over here because they want to be in an environment where they think they can do that. So I tend to agree that way too often we ignore the top producer unintentionally, and there's a lot of negative effects to that, and then all of a sudden we lose them for whatever reason. By having that relationship with the top producers, we find out, are there things screwed up in our cultures that we got, because they're more likely to be blunt with us than a lower producer.
Vince, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What about minimum production requirements?
So we don't do it as an organization, so this probably makes me hypocritical. I was trying to get our board to do it.
Board of Realtors.
I was trying to get the Board of Realtors to do it.
Really?
Which didn't go well. And I wanted to set a standard that if they didn't sell 3 houses a year, that they wouldn't be able to be a member of the Board of Directors or Board of Realtors for the next 3 years. And the person running the board, we had a really long-winded, awkward conversation. And he said, well, you can take this to the Real Estate Commission. I'm like, in the state of Nebraska, we can't get it through the Real Estate Commission because our problem is Omaha's 800,000. The whole state's 1.8 million. So we've got a lot of people that are insurance people and the real estate people, and they do 1 or 2 houses a year because they're in rural areas. So we're not going to ever get it through the Real Estate Commission, but I was going to take a push at it and get the board again. We've not done it internally in our organization. I had that thought,
because I feel like we're putting ourselves at an unfair competitive advantage against everyone else, but I would love to see it in the marketplace to scrub a lot of people out there, and any of the people we'd lose that process, I'd be happy to lose if everybody was else at that level.
Scott, you guys are kind of going that.
Well, the reason I ask, and I want to certainly ask the group too, but I have a commitment letter that I developed just at my location probably 10 or 15 years ago, and it was 6 transactions or 1.5 million. Annually. So my average sales price is $400. So you can do 3 deals and do 1.5, or do 6 deals at 150 or 200. And did I enforce it with an iron fist? No, because I asked, and I show that in the interview. And people ask about it because the commitment letter talks about being on meetings and our monthly bill and what's expected, dress code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I say, no, it's not a do or you're gone, but that I want people to know that they're joining an office with like-minded people. I'm looking for effort. I'm not unlike anyone in this room. We're looking for effort. I'm looking for somebody who's a team player, et cetera, somebody who's engaged. But I do have it, and like I said, I don't run around and try to kick people off the team. Now at our level, Dan has, what was it, earlier this year? We're looking at 5. The number's 5, and we just rolled out a new coaching performance, 8-week performance coaching program, and my number, I think I'm at 7 or 8 already. My PPP for the office, but I just was curious of what folks feel about that, and do they?
One thing we do, I don't think that's correct English, but is offices. We are full. Our offices are all full, and they're all rented. The agents all pay for office space. So this third of people won't pay for office space. That depends on your splits and everything else.
Yeah.
It's flawed. But we set minimum standards because we got people that want an office space is willing to pay for office space if they can't get an office space. So we do set minimum standards for offices, different size offices, cubes, and so forth. Okay. So you may be a guy doing your 2 or 3 deals a year, or you may not have a cube, or you may be sharing with 3 or 4 other people.
Or you're at the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do have minimum standards on those type of things. We just don't get rid of them.
I see. Okay.
So if you have a big office and you have, let's say you have 20 agents that only did 3 deals, and I would argue, I'd take a hard look at your profitability though on those 20 agents with those 3 deals.
Yeah.
You better be careful because that can drastically change your bottom line.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree.
I was going to add, so having studied a number of markets across the U.S., I started this in Las Vegas where I have my company.
And after this, we'll have to wrap up.
Uncannily the same. About half of the agents in most markets are doing 3 or fewer transactions. And those transactions occur because of a high volume of trust. So Chevy doesn't go after Ford customers, Ford doesn't go after Chevy customers, because it costs too much money to get that. So our opportunity of grabbing those transactions is relatively small. Good. I'm not making a case either or. I like what you said, Vince, about that there's a production standard to get something.
Yeah.
But to your point, who hasn't been there where you've had a couple transactions make your book for the month?
And I'm not, and especially when you group a bunch of those agents, like I probably have 15 in my office that did below a standard.
Are they on a team?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are like, maybe they've scaled down, maybe they're,
right.
They're older, they're only doing a couple deals a year. Some of them, no, these are not on the team, so they're splits.
Right.
Still providing.
And they're probably higher revenue
Yes.
transactions.
Yeah.
I understand.